Good day, it is I, Lord Pendlebury, and as you can tell, I've got a slightly deeper voice than usual thanks to having a child. I'm therefore ill all the time, but it does make me sound a full 100 times sexier than the steaming pile of excrement that I usually sound. Anyway, I've not set the timer, so I don't know how long I've got to until I need to pinch this one off. But yeah, anyway, if you want to come and get involved, then there are reasons over there. There's a Discord link down below. And yeah, for now, let's crack on with this week's highlights. Hello then, and welcome to Evolution Sim Racing Round 18. We are in the GT3's and we are at Spielberg in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. A fun and exciting track, but not the easiest to overtake on. Let's take a look at how they shook out following qualifying. Well, Will Thomas hasn't been on pole for a couple of rounds now, but he's taken it this time round. P1 for him, Lord Pendlebury alongside in second. We then have Jamie Nicholson in third with Jeff Sharp alongside in fourth. Dan Slattery returning to the series after his house move, he's in fifth with Chris Palmer alongside in sixth, the first of the AM category. A resurgence in his form has definitely been had towards the end of this season. Steve Everson is then in seventh with Chris Hoss alongside him. Anthony Marriott in ninth with Paul Nicholson in 10th. We then have Josh Levy in 11th and Brian Dodd in 12th. Well, let's get down trackside and see what's occurring. Alright, let's remove that from the screen, and as I say, let's get down trackside. They are off. Will Thomas has got a decent jump. Pendlebury tucks in behind him. Around that first corner they go. I'll tell you what, there is a fair amount of damage to the front of Dan Slattery's Ferrari there. You can see that front bumper is, well, he's dragging it round. I don't think it's attached anymore. It's just there by virtue of the fact that he's driving into it all the time. Definitely down on straight line speed. Word in my ear says that it was Jeff Sharp he went into the back of. Oh, it's all getting a bit close there. That is Brian Dodd that's been turned. I think it was Paul Nicholson. That's unfortunate for Brian Dodd there. Coming down to the last couple of corners then on this first lap. There's a busy livery on Jamie Nicholson's car. Alright, let's take a quick look and see how positions are fared after that first lap. So the top four, no position changes. Palmer, Everson, Hulse, Marriott and Levy all gaining positions as a result of Dan Slattery's misfortune. Josh Levy up 2 positions. Paul Nicholson has dropped down 2. See there, Dan Slattery has had to go into the pit lane. There he is, getting repaired. Unfortunate stuff for him. Well, taking a look back at that first lap, or first corner incident, that's Dan Slattery in the, well, the piss yellow and green thing, and well, he goes into the back of the red and black machine of Jeff Sharp. And seemingly quite an innocuous hit, but you could see from the amount of damage on the front of that Ferrari, it wasn't quite as innocuous as it looks. Well, on board then with Paul Nicholson to see what happened to Brian Dodd, and you can see they're closing in on Dan Slattery. Nicholson makes the move on the inside, and he is there, if not all that far alongside, but I think it's a case of 3 into 1 does not go. Slattery was on the outside, Brian Dodd on the inside. No, Brian Dodd was in the middle, and Paul Nicholson on the inside, and yeah, first lap racing incident for me there. Well, something I didn't spot in the initial replay, this has just come in. Nicholson then spinning Into the gravel, backwards he goes. Back to live then. Josh Levy. Oh, that's a shame. Gets on that outside curve of turn 1. Spins around. And you can hear the absolute wailing of that Porsche. Brian Dodd will sense an opportunity here, you feel. He's got all the momentum on Levy. Side by side as they go up to the slowest corner on the track. Dodd holding that inside line. Looks like Levy's got some pretty decent traction as they come out of that corner though. Looking to the inside line. Hard onto the brakes they go. Levy does well to battle back past. Dodd looking for a switchback, is he? Unfortunately not. Rear got away from him slightly. And while this is going on, that is Paul Nicholson. He is closing the gap back up. Well, we stepped away from this battle a little too soon because this replay's just come in. And that is Brian Dodd. Tricky corner that. Loses the rear end. Paul Nicholson just about makes it through unscathed. Well, checking in at the halfway stage of this one. And it's been largely static since those early exchanges. Will Thomas currently a second up the road from Lord Pendlebury. He has slowly been eking that gap out. Jamie Nicholson is then in third place with Jeff Sharp just behind him. Whilst it doesn't look it, Sharp is carrying some damage. Well, you can see it on the right rear of his Ferrari there. And you would be forgiven looking at this top 4 for thinking that this is Ferrari Challenge. It's not quite. If we take a look at the old car logos in the top left, it's nearly Ferrari Challenge. We've got a couple of Mercs in there, the BM and a Porsche. But yeah, what I was saying before I got distracted there, Jeff Sharp has been struggling for straight line speed and just cannot get past Jamie Nicholson as it stands. Taking look a little bit further back, there is that BM, that is Chris Palmer. He's got Steve Everson, who has definitely got a contender for livery of the week there. That is a beautiful looking machine. He is just behind Chris Hulse, equally just behind him in his Ferrari. This group have been inseparable throughout, but no changes in positions made thus far. Then take a look at Anthony Marriott. He's back in the series after a few rounds out. We thought he might have forgotten how to turn right, but he's doing pretty well on this clockwise circuit. But yes, he is currently in 8th position and 4th in AM category. Then I have Josh Levy in the distance over there in his Poundland machine. He's currently residing in 9th place. There is Paul Nicholson in 10th. Brian Dodd in his Porsche. It's a beautiful sounding thing, that Porsche. Absolutely love it. Well, he's there, and look who is just behind. That is Dan Slattery. Just 1.8 seconds back. Well, here is that battle. Slattery has closed the gap to Brian Dodd. This is for 11th place overall. Slattery taking a much wider line through that final turn. Dodd goes defensive as they head down the main straight up to turn 1. And Slattery later on the brakes. Looks like Dodd may well have let him go through. They both take a 1x for their troubles for running so wide there. But yeah, an easy pass there for Mr. Slattery. Well, things have been starting to get a little bit closer between these three, particularly between Steve Everson there in 6th and whoever you are, Chris Hulse. Oh, looking to the inside. Oh, clobbers that curb a little bit. I'll tell you what, I've just noticed something in the timing tower. That, well, there in your foreground, that is Will Thomas. And he is now just ahead of Palmer. Something's happened there. He has dropped down. He was in first and quite comfortably so. Had been pulling that gap to Pendlebury. Let's go and have a look and see what happened. Well, here he is then, coming up to the highest point on the circuit. And on the power, and just gets on that sausage curb. It spins him round. That sends Pendlebury through into the lead. There is Nicholson and Sharp. Sharp just as half second back from Nicholson. You're going to think about anything down here? You can't. You can see that even though he's only half a second back in the slipstream, he's not catching Jamie Nicholson on the straights. But yeah, that's unfortunate for Will Thomas. Was leading the race, as I say, pulling that gap, but that sausage curb has well and truly shafted him. Well, taking a look at the final couple of corners then, that is Pendlebury. The gap has come down. Jamie Nicholson only a second back, but he'll hold on through the final corner, taking his third win of the season. Overall, that is. Jamie Nicholson and Jeff Sharp coming in close behind. Will Thomas in fourth. But yes, a rather fortuitous win, you would have to say. Didn't have an answer for Will Thomas's pace, but a Will Thomas mistake has handed him that win. Now, let's take a look at the overall standings then, following that one. So there we have it. Lord Pendlebury just 1.1 seconds ahead of Jamie Nicholson in second. Jeff Sharp just a half second back from him. Will Thomas was then in fourth. We then have Chris Palmer winning another AM category race. He's in fifth with Steve Everson and Chris Hulse close behind. They battled all race long, but nobody could find a way past. So that is first, second and third in the AM category. We then had Anthony Marriott in 8th, Josh Levy in 9th, and Paul Nicholson in 10th. Brian Dodd finished in 11th, and then Dan Slattery, you'll notice those positions changed round. Well, Slattery got a drive-through penalty for excessive track limit violations. Unfortunate for him, fortunate for Brian Dodd, finishing in his favourite 11th. Anyway, we will take a short break and then we will be back for the highlights of the feature race. Hello and welcome back to the beautiful Spielberg Hills. We are in line for the 45-minute feature race with mandatory pit stop. It is a bit warmer than it was earlier. First race was run at around maybe 8 AM, I'm guessing, but this one is at 12 noon, therefore a bit warmer. Right then, let's play that game. It's time for Guess the Livery and therefore the race order. Well, in first place on the left-hand side, the first of that left-hand column, that is Josh Levy. He is alongside Brian Dodd on that front row of the grid. We then have Paul Nicholson, followed by... Who are you? Could be Anthony Marriott. I think it's Anthony Marriott. We then have Dan Slattery with Chris Palmer alongside him, maybe? Don't know. Yeah, I think it's... Yeah, that's Chris Palmer. That's the BM. Then we have Chris Hulse with Steve Everson on his outside. Then it is Jamie Nicholson side by side with Will Thomas. We then have Lord Pendlebury with Jeff Sharp in last. I can't imagine that'll last long though. He's in 12th. Anyway, you can see that they are pulled away incredibly slowly. They're not going to warm tyres like that, are they? But yeah, let's crack on with these. Oh, Jesus Christ, what a shit enter that was. Alright, let's crack on. Well, around the final corner they go. Everyone waiting for Josh Levy to go, and he has gone. I tell you what, that's a good getaway from him. How's the rest of them getting on? They're 4 wide. Oh, Will Thomas moves across. That sends Brian Dodd. Slatter is involved again. Well, there's Will Thomas in the foreground. A few have got away with it. A few definitely have not. That is Everson. He is side by side with Chris Palmer. Makes that move stick. Slattery up the inside of Anthony Marriott there as well. Levy, a tasty little lead he has managed to get himself early doors there. It's like they've all tucked in a little bit. I think everyone has managed to recover from that first lap incident. Brian Dodd, an unfortunate innocent party in everything that went on there. Looks like we've got Chris Pulse looking at making moves. He's looking up the inside of Dan Slattery. Slattery leaves him room, still up the inside. And, oh, Hull's just into the side of him. He's going to roll back across. That's Pendlebury, who's got absolutely clattered there. There are some rough-looking cars. And, well, there's the rear end of Hull's vehicle. That's a lot of it. Well, you can look at that. Josh Levy. Oh, no, never mind. We need to get rid of the gain. Oh no, that's Chris Hulse. Oof. Just bumps the barrier slightly. Safe to say he is lacking well, a lot of a car, to be honest. Let's have a look and see what's going on. Looks like Jamie Nicholson is dropping down the order there. What's happened to him? Looks like he spun up at the top of the hill. Slattery gets past him. That's Pendlebury in the background, desperately trying to get back to the pit lane. Steve Everson looks like he is up pretty close behind Paul Nicholson, and indeed he is. Well, keep an eye then on Will Thomas. He is the purple Ferrari, and I tell you what, it's an absolutely brilliant jump. It was in perfect line of sight to see when Josh Levy went, but then it just moves back across like Slattery's not there. Slattery then into Dodd, who was the real innocent party there. Will Thomas got spun round in all of that as well. Looking down from the blimp then for this one. You see Chris Hulse there, third in line. It gets a great run there. Slattery thinks about going defensive, doesn't. And then come round second to last corner. Hulse has got the overlap. Not much of one though. And, well, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other for me there. Slattery swept across like he wasn't there, but equally, should Chris Hulse have moved out of the situation, it's not the most common of corners to be making overtakes on there. I tell you who will be calling it for disciplinary action for both of them. That's Lord Pendlebury, who got absolutely wiped out in that. And you can see there, both, well, there's Hulse going round and Pendlebury trying to make it back to the pits. And here we see, there is Jamie Nicholson, the 002 car, just gets a little bit loose on that sausage curb that took out Will Thomas in the first race. Does exactly the same to him, makes some contact with the barriers. There is the aforementioned Will Thomas getting back through. Dan Slattery able to get past as well. Well, closest battle out on track at the moment then is between Paul Nicholson, Steve Everson and Chris Palmer. Here they are, nose to tail, practically pushing each other round. Josh Levy has continued to open that gap. It's up to 2.8 seconds nearly. Ooh, that's a bit of contact there between Everson and Palmer. Well, there's Palmer. There's Everson trying to recover. Was the move on there? We'll no doubt have a look and see. But now Everson has Slattery right up his chuff. And, oh, he's out a little bit wide there. Slattery looking to recover after the incident with Chris Hulse early doors. Slattery taking a wider line in. He'll be able to carry more pace through. He is all over the back of Everson here. He's got Jamie Nicholson for company as well, and I think his line was a little bit too good to Slattery, and that has enabled Jamie Nicholson up the inside and up into 8th. Everson will be hoping that they continue to battle amongst themselves, but Nicholson has got one hell of a run as they go up the hill. Takes a look to the inside. Is he going for it? He is indeed. Everson stands his ground, and that outside line on that corner does have a hell of a lot of traction. And as you can see there, Everson manages to pull away. Great little battle this is between the three of them. Has Everson run a little bit wide? No, he hasn't. Runs a little bit off the track there though, kicking up the dirt. Close battles all over the place at the moment. Chris Palmer is, after that run-in with Steve Everson, right up close with Paul Nicholson. And looks like Steve Everson has had Jamie Nicholson. Oh, was that Slattery into the back of him there slightly? I think potentially, but you can see there Jamie Nicholson up into 7th. He's got past him. We've got a couple of things to go and have a look at, so I think we should do that before I forget about them. Well, here's the first of the 2 incidents. Just a little bit later on the brakes there. Gives Everson a nudge, does Chris Palmer. In the real world, I feel like a penalty would be taken for that. And taking a look at Everson again here. Gets a little bit wide. And Jamie Nicholson just has the momentum to go around the outside. Slattery tries to follow him through, but can't do. And then Slattery, as we go around here, hard to tell from that angle, but I think there was a little bit of contact between the two of them. Got a better run. Back to the live action then, and this is the battle for 2nd place. Chris Palmer looking up the inside of Paul Nicholson, and up the inside he goes. Jeff Sharp also looking to follow him through. Doesn't quite have the momentum to do it. Paul Nicholson looking to come back though at Chris Palmer. Looks at that inside line. Can't quite get alongside, and Sharp will have the better momentum through this complex of corners now. Thinks about the inside line there. Does Sharp. Nicholson goes defensive. Sharp looks like he's got a pretty decent run as they come through the infield section. There's trees there. Let's change that camera angle. Just showing his nose up the inside, the Team 19 racing man. Can't quite get through. And I tell you what, is Dan Slattery making a move on Steve Everson? I think he has. He's timed it right. 3rd time lucky on the exit of the final corner. They come up to the first corner, and through he goes. That's Steve Everson down to 9th, Slattery up to 8th. Take a quick look at our leader. Oh, that's a very zoomed in look at our leader. Sponsored by Poundland and Matalan. Got a 3-second lead as it stands. So it is all looking very close though for 2nd place. Looks like a poor run through there from Chris Palmer. Jeff Sharp's alongside. Looks like Will Thomas is going alongside Anthony Marriott in the background. Indeed, he goes through there, and Jeff Sharp has gone through on the inside of Chris Palmer. Will Thomas and Anthony Marriott still side by side. Well, Thomas will have the inside line up here, brakes slightly later, and it's a lovely move. All started down at the pit straight, and now as they go down the back straight, he has his prize. It's 4th place. If we take a look at the timing tower, looks like that gap to Josh Levy is slowly starting to creep down. Jeff Sharp now only 2.4 seconds back. And here is the battle between Paul Nicholson and Dan Slattery. Slattery looking up the inside. Nearly a case of 2 into 1 doesn't go. Side by side as they come up to Power Horse. Oh, and had a little wobble on there, Paul Nicholson, and round he goes. Unfortunate, he was running a good race, doing some good defending. Taking a look back at the Jamie Nicholson and Anthony Marriott battle. Whilst Nicholson has got past, Marriott has certainly not let him go. And I tell you what, it looks like we've got side by side for the lead. I'm not sure what's happened there. Sharp has caught up with Levy very, very quickly, as have the rest of them. Not sure if Levy's made a mistake there or somewhere. Levy wanting Sharp, no doubt, to take him with him. Sharp goes defensive. Palmer sticking his nose in. It's a very close battle. Barely half a second covering the top 3 here. Probably close to a second. I'm making it sound more dramatic than it is. And that is Will Thomas side by side with Chris Palmer. Looking around the outside. Oh, he's out wide into the gravel ever so slightly. Slattery right on the tail of Anthony Marriott behind there as well. It looks like we've got Pendlebury back up into the top 10 after his repairs. Has just passed Brian Dodd going off the timing tower. Looks like a good run there from Will Thomas. Happy hunting ground for him down this main straight. Squeezes Palmer to the outside. Tries to get up the inside. Oh, Palmer into the barriers there. Just got on the power potentially a bit too early. Either way, I think the sausage curb was involved, but that has spun him round. Replay just in. Slattery losing it. Last year's champion. Let's have a quick look. Helmet of the Week contender? Certainly. And here we have Will Thomas coming up on Josh Levy. He's done a great job of lasting this long, has Levy. But out of that last turn down the main straight is where Will Thomas gets his shit done. I'll tell you what, looks like we've got Jamie Nicholson with a decent run as well. And, well, we've got 2 people that are now showing. Oh no, Paul Nicholson in the pit. It looks like Slattery has retired. We'll go and have a look and see what's happened there. Likewise, Paul Nicholson, I think he may have had some issues. Wow, took a look at Dan Slattery. He got another drive-through for excessive incidents, decided to call it quits, and that's what happened to Paul Nicholson. All went wrong for him coming out the final turn. Wow, we've jumped forward a few laps here. The pit stops are in full flow at the moment. That is Steve Everson looking up the inside of Anthony Marriott. Closest battle on track as it stands. Jeff Sharp is currently leading the way. His main battle is Will Thomas. Will Thomas went for an earlier pit stop and is hoping to jump Jeff Sharp in the pit stops. And that'll go a long way towards it, because you can see there he's gone purple with a 29.9, fastest lap of anybody. Well, Jeff Sharp has come in for his pit stops. He's leaving the pit lane. Will Thomas down the main straight. It's going to be close, but not close enough for Sharp. There he is. Thomas was pumping in some absolutely excellent laps before Sharp pitted. Went faster again with a 29.606, and it's paid dividends for him. He is now leading the way. Well, this is a battle that's been getting closer and closer, and that is the one for 7th place between Josh Levy and Chris Hulse. Chris Hulse been closing that gap and pulls to the inside, gets a decent run out the last corner. They come up to the first turn, otherwise known as Lauda. And through he goes. Nice move there from Chris Hulse. He's up to 7th. One of the copious amounts of drivers that have been trying to make a recovery. Well, here he is then. Makes amends for sprint race errors. Does our Will Thomas. His team will be happy with that. First place for him as he comes across the line. Great pit stop strategy that gave him the lead over Sharp. Didn't have to pass him on track. Sharp does come through into 2nd place. Let's go and take a look at the final results then. There we have it then. As said, Will Thomas across the line in first with Jeff Sharp in second, just 3.8 seconds back. Then a big gap back to Jamie Nicholson in 3rd place. Chris Palmer takes another victory in the AM category. He is in 4th overall with Steve Everson in 5th and 2nd in category. Lord Pendlebury came home next, got caught up innocent party in that first lap drama. Recovers to take 6th, though, in his pursuit of Jeff Sharp in the overall championship. That is not going to do him much good. We then have Chris Hulse, 7th overall, 3rd in category. Josh Levy admirably led the race for a while and did a good job, but fell back down to 8th overall, but 4th in class. Paul Nicholson was then in 9th. He was a lap down. Brian Dodd also a lap down in 10th. Anthony Marriott sadly had to retire due to injury in, he was 13 laps from the end. And then Dan Slattery, 21 laps down, suspected rage quit after getting another drive-through penalty for not being able to keep between the white lines. Well, that's that. We'll now take a look at the final point standings. Well, let's start off with the overall standings then. Jeff Sharp continues to lead the way. He's on 305 points. Pendlebury, after that second race, he closed the gap, but then the gap has expanded again. He's now on 290 points, 15 points back. We then have Will Thomas on 272 points, with Ricky Worrell in 4th on 234. It's then Jamie Nicholson in 5th on 170, with Steve Everson just 9 points back on 161. Chris Hulse is then a further 6 points back on 155, with Chris Palmer 2 points back from him. That is a tight section of the table. Dan Slattery on 122 points. I was thinking that was wrong, but yeah, he DNF'd for both races, so no points for him apparently, though I'm still not sure that's right. Anyway, who cares? I can't be asked to look into it. Anthony Marriott is then on 62 points. Josh Morris 1 point back on 61. Paul Nicholson is then on 40, with Brian Dodd on 34, Martin Rigby's on 28, Josh Levy on 26, Nelson Verdier on 16, Axel Edwards on 13, and Travis Dorado on 10. Now, let us take a look at the pro standings. Jeff Sharp leads the way here too. He's on 348. Pendlebury just 9 points back on 339. We then have Will Thomas on 312 with Ricky Worrell in 4th on 277. Bit of a gap back then to Jamie Nicholson, he's on 213 with Dan Slattery on 197 points in 6th. Martin Rigby's then on 56 points with Nelson Verdier on 36 points. And last but by no means least, it is the AM standings. Chris Hulse continues to lead the way, but Chris Palmer is slowly closing that gap. I fear he might run out of races as we only have 4 left to go in this season. But yeah, still he's battling on admirably. He's on 325. Steve Everson's then in 3rd on 277 with Josh Morris on 161. 5 points back, we've got Paul Nicholson and Brian Dodd sharing 156 points. Josh Levy is then on 145 and Anthony Marriott on 104. Axel Edwards on 52 and Travis Dorado in 10th on 27 points. Well, thank you very much for watching. Next week we are heading to Montreal, an absolutely belting track that, and we are in the Lotus 79s. That's the first time I can remember the 79s being used in Evolution Sim Racing, so I'm very much excited for it. You should be too, because wheels are likely to come off close walls and pretty poor driving. Anyway, we will catch you next week.